Snow covered the quiet road when newlyweds Ethan and Grace noticed something lying in the storm. Ethan ran toward it, a scarred German shepherd, barely alive, one paw wrapped protectively around two newborn puppies clinging to his chest. Even bleeding and freezing, the dog refused to give up. His tired eyes watched Ethan, not with fear, but with hope that his babies might live. Grace wrapped the puppies in her veil while Ethan lifted the weakened father into his arms. A small tag revealed his name: Max. Their wedding night had suddenly become a fight to save a family built on courage. What happens next will make you believe in love, loyalty, and miracles again. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart. Snow twirled through Silver Creek like a restless chorus of white feathers, cold yet graceful under the gray December sky. Inside St. Helena's Chapel, warmth bloomed like a stubborn flame, refusing to bow to winter. Rows of candles flickered, painting gentle halos across the wooden pews, where friends and former Navy comrades gathered, dressed in dark suits and proud smiles. At the altar stood Ethan Walker, a 35-year-old Navy SEAL whose presence carried both command and quiet vulnerability. His tall frame was built from years of endurance training, shoulders broad beneath a navy blue formal uniform tailored to perfection. His jaw was strong and slightly squared, the faint shadow of a beard suggesting a man who never fully let himself relax. His brown hair, cut short in military style, held a few strands of gray near the temples, the price of sleepless nights and missions where courage alone wasn't always enough to save everyone. Yet his eyes, deep steel blue, softened each time he glanced at the doors where his bride would soon appear. Standing next to him was his best man, Logan Pierce, also a SEAL, softer in demeanor, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, hair messy like he had always been running late for life. Logan, though shorter and leaner than Ethan, had the heart of a guardian, always cracking jokes to lighten the heaviest of days. Today, though, even he seemed to be holding his breath. Because today, Ethan Walker would finally receive a different kind of mission. One that did not require camouflage or a weapon, only courage of the heart. When the doors opened, everyone rose. Grace Miller stepped inside like a memory the world had been waiting to rediscover. She was 33, tall, with an athletic grace honed from years dodging bullets and waves during clandestine operations at sea. Her long chestnut hair, usually tied tight beneath a helmet, now fell in soft curls around her shoulders. The pure white wedding gown hugged her toned form without hiding the strength in her posture. Her skin, lightly sun-kissed from deployments in tropical seas, contrasted beautifully with the drifting snow outside. But her eyes, hazel, gentle, and fierce, told the deeper story. Those eyes had witnessed explosions, rescues gone wrong, friends lost to waves and war. Yet today they glowed with something braver than any mission she'd faced: hope. As she walked down the aisle holding a bouquet of lilies, her mother's favorite, she felt a sudden tightness in her chest. It wasn't fear. It was disbelief that someone like her, who had spent so long running toward danger, could now walk toward love. Grace's inner voice whispered that she didn't deserve something this peaceful. But when Ethan's eyes met hers, doubt thawed. He had been her anchor through every storm, reminding her that home was not a place. It was a person. The ceremony began. Father Bennett, a kind elderly man with gentle wrinkles and white hair slicked neatly back, spoke with a voice that carried wisdom and warmth from decades serving Silver Creek families. He had known Grace since she was a brave, wild teenager, who once climbed the church's roof to see the stars closer. Ethan listened, but his thoughts wandered to the reason he once promised himself to never love again. The flashback of a team member who died in his arms on a failed rescue at sea. The blame had carved into his spirit like ice. He had told himself love was a luxury he could not risk losing. Yet Grace had broken through his defenses, not with force, but with unwavering loyalty. She understood darkness without fearing it. He loved her for that more than anything. When it came time for vows, Ethan's voice trembled only once. "Grace, I spent years believing my heart was meant only for battle. But you showed me that courage is not just facing death. It's choosing to live. With you." Her eyes shimmered. She replied, "You carried scars you thought made you unworthy. But Ethan, they are proof that you fought for others. And now, I choose to fight for you." Applause rippled through the chapel, many wiping silent tears, including Logan, trying not to sniff loudly. Rings were exchanged, hands trembling, smiles unstoppable. The kiss that followed tasted like everything they'd lost, and everything they were finally allowed to dream again. Outside, a wind gust hit the stained glass windows, shaking the frame. Not enough to startle anyone, but enough to remind Grace and Ethan that storms were rarely far in their world. The couple walked out, greeted by cheers and handfuls of white confetti thrown like tiny blessings. The limousine, wrapped in satin ribbons, waited to take them to the lakefront reception at Silver Ridge Hotel, just beyond the hill. Ethan gave Grace his coat as they stepped into the cold, his protective instincts never resting. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. Grace smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "Like I finally know where I belong." Logan opened the car door dramatically. "Your chariot awaits, Commander and Commanderess." Laughter eased the moment. As the car pulled away, snow fell thicker, roads turning slick under pale headlights. Grace laced her fingers with Ethan's, unaware that just ahead, beyond the halo of street lamps, a life-changing encounter shivered against the cold pavement. Their wedding day was not done offering surprises. The storm had one more gift, a mission only hearts like theirs could answer. Snow whipped across the windshield as the limousine glided down the narrow road, leading away from St. Helena's Chapel. Inside, warmth lingered, but the world outside seemed determined to remind Ethan Walker and Grace Miller that life never let celebration exist without a test close behind. Their fingers remained intertwined, as if refusing to break the fragile peace they had just earned. Logan Pierce followed behind them, in a black SUV with a few teammates, joking loudly enough through the window that Grace could hear him even over the wind. "Don't you dare bail on your own reception!" he shouted, his laughter muffled yet full of the same brotherhood that had carried them through battlefields far worse than falling snow. Ethan chuckled faintly, though his attention kept drifting toward the road. Years of training made him sensitive to shifts in the world, especially the dark, the unexpected, the unseen. Grace leaned her head on his shoulder, a habit she had only allowed herself to form recently. Her mind flickered through memories like a reel of silent film. Waves slamming against a ship's hull, a teammate pulled underwater, sandstorms swallowing entire convoy routes. War had taught her to anticipate pain even on the happiest days. Maybe that was why she noticed it first. "Ethan," she whispered, pointing toward a flickering streetlight up ahead. "Do you see that?" Something dark, nearly buried beneath a mound of snow, trembled. The limousine slowed. "Pull over," Ethan ordered gently but firmly. The driver, Mark Jensen, a man in his early 40s with a soft belly, kind brown eyes behind rectangular glasses, and a face that showed he had once been handsome before stress from raising 3 kids alone etched permanent lines around his mouth, nodded without question. Mark had driven many weddings in Silver Creek, but he recognized the tone of a SEAL giving a command for reasons that did not concern vanity or schedule. Ethan stepped into the cold air first, his boots sinking deep into fresh powder. Grace followed quickly, still gripping the skirt of her wedding dress, teeth clenching when the wind bit at her exposed skin. The closer they got, the clearer it became. "Oh my God," Grace breathed. A German shepherd, older and battered, was curled around 2 tiny bundles, puppies no more than a few weeks old. The dog's fur was mostly black with streaks of tan faded by age, but its body was stiff, paws splayed as if every muscle had been used to shield those small forms. Its ribs showed sharply under the matted fur, and the snow clinging to its face formed icy crystals along whiskers gone white with time. A deep, fresh wound sliced across its abdomen, jagged, like made by a blade or sharp metal edge. Blood had frozen into the snow beneath it, yet the dog still forced itself to curl tighter around the shivering puppies. Grace knelt slowly, showing empty hands. She knew better than to rush an injured animal, especially one that had been trained, because this was no ordinary stray. A dog who continued protecting others while half dying had the heart of a soldier. "Hey," she whispered softly, voice trembling from more than cold. "We're here to help you." The dog's eyes cracked open. Amber, weary, fiercely intelligent. It tried to growl, but only a weak rumble emerged. Not threat. Fear. Ethan recognized the look. He'd seen it in mirrors when he returned from missions. Survivors always expected pain to come next. "It's okay," he murmured, kneeling beside Grace. The puppies whimpered, tiny bodies trembling under the weight of snowflakes. One of them, golden beige with a small white patch on its forehead, pressed itself deeper into its parent's chest, eyes sealed tight. The other, a sleek brown puppy, blinked up with confused eyes that reflected innocence untouched by the world. "They're freezing," Grace said, panic pushing into her voice. Ethan shrugged off his wedding jacket and wrapped the puppies gently. The older dog tried to rise, but its legs failed beneath it. Still, it attempted once more, refusing to let anyone take the little ones without its permission. "Easy, warrior," Ethan whispered, his voice catching unexpectedly in his throat. "You've done enough." Logan hurried over, breath fogging heavily as he crouched beside them. His normally playful face tightened with concern. "Jeez, poor guy." Grace inspected the wound, her military medical training resurfacing. "We need to get him into the car. Now." Mark rushed back with a blanket from the trunk, his concern deepening with each step closer. He wasn't the kind of man who handled emergency well, but the sight of a creature bleeding in the cold tugged at the softer corners of his heart. "I have kids," he muttered, voice cracking. "Can't leave babies out here." Snow blasted harder, almost as if attempting to bury the scene before help could arrive. Ethan lifted the German shepherd carefully. The dog let out a strained whine, but didn't bite. There was trust there, reluctant but present. Grace cradled both puppies now wrapped snugly, their tiny hearts hammered beneath her touch. "We need a vet, and fast," Ethan said, urgency tightening every word. Grace nodded toward the front passenger seat. "The nearest clinic is in town. Hannah Rogers. She's good." As they settled into the limousine again, Ethan holding the injured dog on his lap, Grace securing the puppies against her warmth. She noticed something glinting near the dog's collar. A metal tag. Worn. Scratched. Just 4 letters remained visible. Max. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. A hint of recognition? No, memory. He had heard that name before. But from where? The car lurched back onto the snowy path. Behind them, the cheers and confetti at the chapel felt a lifetime away. In front of them, under the storm, waited a difficult truth, but also a second chance. Grace kissed one puppy on its cold head. "Hang on, little ones," she murmured. Ethan tightened his grip around Max, whose breathing was shallow but still determined. "This is our wedding day," he whispered, "and we're not losing anyone." The blizzard followed them all the way into downtown Silver Creek, its icy breath crawling across the windshield, as if refusing to let go of the dying dog in Ethan's arms. The limousine's heater struggled to keep up, blowing air that felt warm yet useless compared to the cold eating through the old German shepherd's bones. Grace held the puppies close to her chest, feeling their tiny ribs vibrate with every frightened breath. "Just a few more minutes," she whispered to them, though she said it mostly to convince herself. The veterinary clinic appeared through the swirling snow like a lighthouse, a glowing red sign, Rogers Animal Care. Mark skidded into the parking lot, tires crunching over frozen slush. Ethan didn't wait for a full stop. He threw the door open and ran inside carrying the limp dog wrapped in his jacket. Grace rushed after him with the puppies. The clinic's reception area was quiet, except for a blinking Christmas tree and the low hum of fluorescent lights. Behind the counter, a young veterinary assistant jolted upright. Mia Sanchez looked barely 23, short and round-faced with freckles sprinkled generously across warm bronze skin, her dark curls escaping her ponytail. She wore bright purple scrubs decorated with cartoon cats. Her voice, usually gentle, shook with surprise. "Oh my goodness. What happened?" Ethan didn't waste a second. "Severe abdominal wound. Hypothermia. 2 newborn pups." Mia's eyes widened, but she responded quickly, a sign that she'd learned to operate under sudden pressure. She grabbed a gurney, pushed it forward, and motioned them through the swinging doors. Inside, stainless steel counters reflected the cold light. The smell of disinfectant and desperation clung to the air. Dr. Hannah Rogers appeared moments later. Tall and slender for a woman in her late 30s. Long, dark blonde hair tied in a high, messy bun. No makeup except the deep purple shadows of exhaustion beneath her hazel eyes. A faded scar ran along her right forearm, the kind earned from a lifetime of refusing to back away from an animal in pain. She moved with the speed of instinct and the precision of someone trained to rebuild life from the brink of death. "What have we got?" she asked, voice steady. Grace quickly explained while setting the puppies on a heated pad. Max whimpered as Ethan lowered him onto the table, his body twitching from shock. Hannah snapped on gloves. "He's an older shepherd, at least 9 or 10. Good muscle build beneath the weight loss. Was he working? Those scars look tactical." Ethan nodded grimly. He protected the puppies, didn't let the cold take them. Hannah pressed gently near the wound and felt the dog tense. Blood pooled beneath her fingers, thicker now as warmth reached frozen tissue. She inhaled sharply. This was no accident. Cut is too clean. Knife or serrated blade. Someone did this. The room fell dangerously quiet. Grace felt her stomach twist. not just from fear, but from the creeping realization that cruelty had walked close to their wedding day. Max's breathing turned ragged. Hannah looked up, eyes burning with determination. "I'm taking him into surgery. He's lost a lot of blood, but he's still fighting, and I'm not letting him do it alone." Ethan saw something in her. The same refusal to surrender that defined every Navy SEAL he'd ever served beside. "Whatever you need," he said. "We'll stay." Hannah nodded once, then rolled Max toward the surgery bay. Mia adjusted the heat lamps above the puppies, tears shining in her big brown eyes. They were out there in this storm. Grace rested a comforting hand on her shoulder. "They're safe now." Ethan paced the hallway like a caged animal, while Grace gently dried the pups with soft towels. Her wedding dress was smeared with blood and melting snow. The day she had imagined, laughter, clinking glasses, dancing, now seemed like a fairy tale that belonged to someone else. "I thought after the Navy, things would be different," she whispered. Ethan stopped, looking at her fully. "Grace, I know. But maybe we were meant to be here." He brushed a snowflake from her cheek. "Maybe they were meant to find us." She shook her head, torn between awe and grief. "On our wedding night? Maybe love shows up when we don't expect it. Not just ours. Theirs." Before she could reply, Hannah emerged from the operating room. Mask pulled down, chest rising fast. "He made it through surgery," she said, voice catching slightly from adrenaline and relief. "But he's not stable yet. We'll need to observe him closely." Grace exhaled shakily, clutching the pups tighter. "Can we see him?" Hannah nodded. In the recovery room, Max lay covered with warm blankets, IV lines leading to a half-empty bag of fluids. Despite the anesthesia, his ears twitched at the scent of the puppies Grace brought near. The little golden one reached out a paw and squeaked, a fragile cry that felt like hope. Even in unconsciousness, Max tried to move closer. Ethan swallowed the ache rising in his throat. "He's their whole world," he murmured. Hannah's eyes softened. "And maybe they're his." There was a pause, a moment suspended between relief and dread. Because life didn't just hand over wounded heroes without demanding answers. Hannah stepped closer, lifting something she had found near the wound. A tiny silver fragment bent around a strip of metal, a piece of a tracking tag, partially snapped. "This wasn't just a stray dog," she said quietly. "Someone cared enough to try to track him, or control him." Ethan felt every nerve sharpen. Grace felt a chill deeper than the snow. Hannah placed the fragment on the tray under the harsh surgical lamp. On its scratched surface, a number glinted coldly back at them. 12. The storm howled outside, rattling the windows as if trying to warn them. Max breathed shallowly, unaware of the dark truth that was inching closer to claim what it believed belonged to it. Grace kissed the puppies gently. Ethan clenched his jaw, protective instincts roaring back to life. Their wedding day had turned into their first mission as husband and wife. And this time, the lives they swore to protect had 4 paws. Night tightened its grip around Silver Creek as the storm finally eased into a brittle, uneasy silence. The veterinary clinic's windows glowed dimly, a fragile beacon in a town that felt suddenly too dark, too watchful. Ethan sat beside Max's recovery crate, fingers lightly brushing the dog's fur. Max was still unconscious, but his breathing had grown stronger, deeper. The puppies slept bundled near Grace, who had changed into borrowed clothes from Mia, simple gray sweatpants and a blue hoodie. yet her beauty remained untouched by exhaustion. Her long dark hair, now dry, curled slightly from melted snow. But her expression held a new tension, a guarded edge that hadn't been there a few hours ago. Grace listened to the hum of machines keeping Max warm and alive. "Ethan," she said softly, "why would someone attack a dog protecting tiny puppies?" Ethan didn't have an answer yet, but his instincts screamed that this had the scent of something organized, something cruel. Before he could reply, the clinic door chimed. Ethan snapped to his feet, muscles tightening like coiled steel. A man entered, Sheriff Marcus Hale, a seasoned officer in his mid-50s with broad shoulders and a neatly trimmed salt and pepper beard. His dark uniform coat was dusted with snow, and his badge caught the fluorescent light with a cold gleam. He had deep-set hazel eyes that spoke of a lifetime watching both justice and grief unfold on back roads and small-town doorsteps. A faded wedding ring still wrapped his finger, though. Widowhood had left a permanent ache in his posture. Marcus was respected in Silver Creek for being steady even when the world was spinning. Stern but fair, never easily rattled. Mia rushed to greet him. "Sheriff Hale, they found the dog tonight." "I heard the broadcast," Marcus replied calmly. "Heard there were pups, too." Ethan stepped forward, introducing himself and Grace. Marcus shook their hands, his grip firm. Ethan explained the attack, Hannah's surgery, and the metal tag labeled 12C. Marcus exhaled slowly, rubbing the stress lines at the corner of his eyes. "We've had some trouble on the outskirts of town. Suspicious trucks, lights in the woods, ranchers reporting missing animals. Thought it was coyotes." He knelt near Max, inspecting the scars gently, but with a practiced eye. "These aren't from nature. Someone has a plan, and they're ruthless." Grace hugged the puppies closer. "Will you help us protect them?" Marcus met her gaze, voice firm. "That's why I'm here." Hannah entered, wiping her hands, relief washing through as she saw the sheriff. She respected him deeply, knowing he always showed up when others hesitated. She checked Max's IV line, eyes softening. "He's still fighting, stronger than he looks." Marcus nodded. "I'll file an incident report. But I don't want this going public yet. If someone's tracking him, we keep the advantage. We stay quiet." Outside, the wind cut sharply again, like a warning. Ethan's body tensed. Years of combat trained him to feel danger before it showed its face. Moments later, his instincts were proven right. Headlights swept across the windows, too slow, too deliberate. A black truck rolled to a stop, engine rumbling low like a predator growling before a strike. The clinic's door rattled under a sudden gust of wind. Or was it something else? Marcus's hand rested on his holster. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Through the glass, a figure appeared, tall, lean, wrapped in a dark winter coat. He pushed the door open, cold air spiraling in around him. He removed his hood, revealing sharp features, high cheekbones, narrow jaw, and icy blue eyes void of warmth. His buzz-cut hair was almost white under the lights. A thin scar dragged from his left eyebrow to his cheekbone, a reminder of past violence he likely caused, not received. Riley Crane. Hannah inhaled sharply. The name she hadn't spoken aloud yet suddenly stood in flesh before them. Riley had once been a contractor handling K-9 operations for a private security firm, fired for misconduct. Rumors of illegal animal testing shadowed his departure. He smiled, thin and dangerous. "Evening. I heard there was a rescue situation here." Marcus's stance subtly shifted into defense. "Clinic's closed. You'll need to come back in the morning." Riley ignored him, eyes scanning the room until they landed on Max and the pups. "I believe those belong to me." Grace stepped back, instinctively shielding the puppies, voice trembling but fierce. "No, they don't." Riley tilted his head with unsettling calm. "Max, Combat K9 designation 12C, his litter 12D series. They escaped during transport. I'm here to retrieve what's company property." Ethan's voice hardened. "You nearly killed him." Riley offered a lazy shrug. "Collateral damage. They serve a greater purpose, not sentimental pets." Marcus moved closer, hand firm on his weapon. "You need to leave. Now." Riley's eyes sharpened, cold fury flashing behind restraint. "You're making a mistake." "Lock the doors," Marcus ordered once Riley stepped back outside. Mia hurried to bolt them. Ethan watched Riley through the frosted glass. The man lingered, staring like a hunter memorizing his prey. Then he smiled again, a slow promise of trouble, before vanishing into the storm. Grace's heart pounded, but she refused to cry. She whispered to Max, "We won't let him take you." Ethan stood behind her, jaw set in stone. "If he comes again, we'll be ready." Marcus looked around at them, this new, unlikely team united by a wedding night turned battleground. "I'll have deputies patrol the area, and you two aren't going home alone tonight." Max stirred faintly, perhaps sensing the danger, but his breathing steadied when the puppies nestled closer. Outside, snow began falling again, covering footprints, before anyone could follow them. But Riley Crane was out there, watching, waiting, and he wasn't finished. The storm had quieted, but the air outside still carried a hostile stillness, like the world was waiting for something to snap. Inside Roger's animal care, the lights were dimmed to let Max rest. The puppies curled into Grace's lap as she dozed in a chair. Ethan remained wide awake in the hallway, every nerve taut. Years of deployments had engraved vigilance into his muscle memory. Sleep had no place when danger prowled nearby. Sheriff Marcus Hale stayed too, seated near the entrance with a thermos of black coffee resting in his large, calloused hands. The man looked carved from responsibility itself. His beard shadowed his jaw more heavily now, and fatigue deepened the creases at his brow, but his hazel eyes never lost their sharpness. Marcus was a protector, a role he clung to since losing his wife in a car accident a decade earlier. Grief had not made him softer. It had forged him into a shield. Mia was in the back, preparing warm formula for the puppies, humming shakily to fight off fear. Meanwhile, Dr. Hannah Rogers had fallen asleep on a cot in her tiny office, still wearing her surgical gown. Even in rest, her fingers curled slightly, as if ready to hold a suture needle if Max needed her again. The ticking of the wall clock seemed too loud. 3:42 a.m. A sound. Soft. Too soft. Like metal brushing against metal. Ethan stood up instantly. Marcus followed, gun drawn. The fluorescent lights flickered back on as if sensing the threat. Then came the unmistakable pop of a lock being clipped. Ethan hissed, "Back door." Marcus signaled silently for him to flank left while he approached center. Both men moved like hunters in the dark, efficient, precise, unafraid. The rear door burst open with a violent swing. Snow gusted in, and two masked men stepped inside wearing black tactical clothing and night vision goggles. Both carried long metal poles, catch sticks, the kind used to restrain animals. Mia dropped the bottle she was holding. It shattered, milk and glass spreading across the floor like spilled fear. She stumbled backward as one man lunged toward her. Before he could grab her, Ethan tackled him into a wall. The man grunted, swinging wildly with the pole. But Ethan's training took over. A sharp elbow, a sweep. The intruder crashed to the floor. Marcus fired a warning shot toward the second man. "Sheriff Hale, drop your weapon, now!" But the second intruder wasn't aiming for humans. His eyes locked on Max. Max had awoken to the chaos, still weak but standing protectively over the puppies. He growled, low, injured, but determined. The man thrust the pole forward. Max lunged. Even post-surgery, even bleeding, his instinct to defend had no rival. The pole struck his shoulder, but he didn't fall back. He bit down viciously and twisted until metal clanged against the tiles. "Max!" Grace screamed, racing forward with the pup secured inside her sweater. The intruder abandoned the pole and reached for Max's injured side. Max yelped. That sound broke something inside Ethan. He grabbed the fallen pole and struck the intruder across the back. The man collapsed with a howl. Marcus cuffed the first guy, while Ethan pinned the second one. The sheriff's voice boomed like thunder. "Who sent you? Riley Crane?" The intruder spat blood across the floor, smirking beneath the mask. "Property retrieval. Nothing personal." Ethan leaned closer, fury burning behind his blue eyes. "You ever come after them again, it'll get personal in a hurry." Sirens approached outside. Marcus had triggered his radio panic alert during the fight. 2 deputies rushed in moments later. Deputy Logan Reed and Deputy Sam Collins, both mid-30s with sturdy builds and snow-covered uniforms. Logan, clean-cut with sandy blonde hair, was known for his calm patience and thoughtful intelligence. Sam, sporting a heavy dark beard and stern gaze, was a former Marine with a stubborn moral compass. They rapidly secured the intruders, hauling them outside into the icy dawn. Max lay trembling, and Grace knelt beside him, stroking his head with tears staining her cheeks. "You're safe. I promise." Hannah hurried over, awakened by the chaos. She checked Max's stitches and vitals. Relief loosened her shoulders. "He's holding. He's so damn strong." Marcus spoke low, voice edged with concern. "If they sent a team, Crane won't stop. He'll come himself next." Ethan glanced at Grace, his jaw tightening with resolve. "Then we relocate. Somewhere Riley won't reach easily." Hannah nodded. "There's an old ranger cabin near Pine Ridge, abandoned after the floods, but still sturdy. Remote." Marcus agreed. "Good choice. No cell signal, though. We'll rely on radio." Grace, despite her exhaustion, squared her shoulders, Navy SEAL discipline locking into place. "We'll protect him. All of them." Ethan placed a hand over hers, steady and warm. "We'll defend our new family." Max let out a quiet whine, pressing his nose weakly into the puppies nestled in Grace's arms. The bigger pup, a black-coated boy with a white mark on his paw, licked Max's muzzle as if comforting him. The smaller golden girl curled beneath Max's chin. They didn't know danger. They only knew love. Dawn cracked through the storm clouds as the group prepared to leave. The intruders were taken into custody, but their smirks foretold a terrifying truth. Riley would not forgive failure. Riley would come. And next time, he would bring the full force of his obsession. Max's eyes opened with newfound fire, reflecting the rising sun like a soldier reborn. The real battle had just begun. The mountains surrounding Silver Creek hid themselves beneath a curtain of early morning snow as Ethan drove the sheriff's 4-wheel truck toward Pine Ridge. The road ahead curled like a white serpent between towering evergreens weighed down by the storm. In the back seat, Max lay wrapped in blankets, one paw protectively touching the two tiny pups who slept curled against his chest. Grace sat beside them, one hand resting gently on Max's head, as if willing her strength into his battered body. Sheriff Marcus Hale followed close behind in his cruiser, watchful eyes catching every shadow. He had sent Logan and Sam to transport the two captured intruders to county holding, along with strict orders. No phone calls, no visitors. Marcus understood this wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was a war for lives that couldn't defend themselves. Beside Ethan in the passenger seat sat Ranger Aiden Brooks, a man in his late 40s who had been called in by Marcus due to his knowledge of the ridge. Aiden's weathered face displayed years of harsh winters, his jawline dusted with dark stubble. A thin scar sloped across his left eyebrow, a reminder of surviving a bear encounter years ago while rescuing stranded hikers. His hair was peppered gray, hidden beneath a wool beanie. His voice carried the calm of someone used to solitude and danger alike. "Cabin's not far," he said. "But the road may be too iced for wheels." Ethan glanced at him. "We can handle it." Aiden gave a short nod, respecting the steel in Ethan's tone. "Figures. Seals usually can." It wasn't bragging, just truth earned through fire. As they ascended, Max stirred weakly. His golden eyes blinked open, alert but clouded with pain. He scanned the environment, still a defender despite his wounds. Grace whispered, "You're safe," and Max's breathing eased, though his gaze never left the windows. The world had hurt him before. He didn't trust it to stop now. After another steep turn, Aiden raised a hand. "Here," Ethan braked. "I don't see anything." "That's the point," Aiden replied, stepping out. The wind bit sharply as he guided them along a barely visible path leading off the main road. The forest thickened until it seemed to close around them. At last, between the trees, a dark wooden structure emerged, weather-worn but sturdy. An old ranger safe house. The cabin. Its slanted roof sagged under the snow. Boards creaked as wind cut through cracks, but it stood rooted strong in the wilderness. A lone guardian. Inside, Aiden quickly started the wood-burning stove. The flames cast dancing shadows across walls decorated with outdated maps and rusting lantern hooks. Grace settled the puppies and Max near the hearth. The warmth revived color in her cheeks and brought a soft glow to her dark eyes, though worry still pulled at the corners of her expression. "This will work," Marcus said, locking the door behind them. His deep voice reverberated in the quiet space. "For now." Ethan checked windows. Then he knelt beside Max, softly inspecting his stitches. His fingers were gentle, but his eyes were storming. "He needs more than safety. He needs justice." Grace sat close, leaning into Ethan. "We'll make sure he gets both." The puppies woke, tiny mews echoing like questions. The black-pawed male clumsily climbed onto Max's neck in a show of bold affection. The smaller golden female waddled toward Grace and licked her knuckle. Grace laughed softly, despite everything. "This one's got a spark," she murmured. "They both do," Ethan said, his voice warming, just like their father. Aiden, unpacking supplies, glanced back. "You named them yet?" Grace smiled tenderly. "The boy is Scout." "And the girl?" Ethan asked. Grace looked at her, bright, brave, determined, despite being hardly bigger than a glove. "Sunny," she decided, because even in a storm she found a way to shine. Max closed his eyes as if approving. Marcus checked his radio, static only. Signals shot. If Riley Crane's tracking Max, we'll need eyes outside. Aiden nodded. I'll take first watch. Ethan rose, gripping Aiden's shoulder firmly. I'll be there with you. Their expressions said what words didn't. Riley is coming. While Grace prepared blankets for a long day, she overheard Ethan and Marcus at the door. Marcus kept his voice low. Crane's record is dirtier than we knew. Military research gone rogue. He thinks these dogs are weapons. No, Ethan answered, jaw clenched. They're family. The sheriff studied him a moment, then smiled faintly. Good to have people like you on our side. Ethan returned the gesture with a respectful nod, soldier to protector. Later, when Grace believed Ethan had slept, he stepped outside into the cold. He looked up at the sky, gray and heavy, and let the silence settle into him. He replayed Riley's voice in his head. Property. Everything in Ethan revolted at that word. Max limped over to him, leaning against his leg despite injury. Ethan knelt, resting his forehead against Max's. I promise you, he whispered, voice cracking with emotions he rarely showed. I won't let him hurt you again. I won't let him take your kids. You've lost enough. Max responded with a soft, grateful breath. Inside, Grace watched the scene through the frosted window. She wiped a tear that escaped, her heart swelling with love for Ethan, pride for Max, and fear of what lay ahead. Because in the distance, beyond the trees, tires crunched softly over snow. Riley Crane had found a trail, and dawn was just hours away. Snow whispered against the cabin walls like a warning too soft to raise alarm. But Max's ears twitched long before any human sensed the danger. He pushed himself upright, still weak but driven by an instinct carved into bone. Protect. His ribs ached where the blade had cut him days ago, yet he stood guard between Grace, cradling Sonny and Scout, and the cold window where shadows moved behind the frost. Outside, headlights cut a thin line through the trees before vanishing again. Ethan tightened the straps of his tactical vest, a piece of his former Navy SEAL life he never expected to wear on his wedding night. His sharp jaw, once softened by joy, now hardened with purpose. Grace, her dark hair disheveled and eyes shadowed by fear and resolve, handed him a flashlight and the rifle Marcus had supplied. He whispered, "Stay behind me, no matter what." Marcus Hale checked the last window lock, his broad shoulders a fortress unto themselves. The sheriff's face was pale in the dim light, jaw clenched as he aimed his service weapon toward the door. His breath came steady, controlled by years of defying fear, but the memory of losing his wife reminded him what was at stake. Never again. Ranger Aiden Brooks scanned the tree line from the back window with a hunting rifle, moving with the patience of someone who had stared down wild predators and refused to blink first. Snow clung to his beard as he cracked the window slightly, listening. 2 sets of footsteps, he murmured. Slow, trained, spreading out. Ethan nodded. Riley wants to come through the blind spot. Max limped toward the rear door, low growls rumbling through his chest. Even injured, the veteran dog refused to cower. He nudged Scout and Sonny behind Grace's legs, nudging again until the pups hid under a folded blanket by the stove. He's telling them to stay back, Grace whispered, heart twisting. Then, silence. A silence so deep that every heartbeat sounded like a drum. The door didn't crash or splinter. Instead, the window above the sink shattered inward with a sudden explosion of glass. A black-clad figure rolled through and sprang up, face hidden behind a ski mask. Aiden fired first. The bullet missed by inches as the intruder dove behind a counter. Ethan vaulted over a chair, tackling the man into the stove. The lid clanged open, sparks shooting through the air. The intruder swung a knife, gleaming, serrated, and Ethan blocked just in time, the blade grazing his sleeve. Marcus fired a warning shot. "Drop it!" The attacker didn't. Instead, he reached toward a pouch. Ethan slammed his fist forward, one precise strike, sending the man crashing unconscious against the kitchen island. Meanwhile, the back door burst inward. Snow sprayed across the floor as Riley Crane entered like a storm given human form. No hood or mask now, his pale, buzzed hair harsh against the chilling night, scar slicing down his sharp cheekbone. Eyes glacial and unhinged, he looked directly at Max. "You have caused me more trouble than you're worth," Riley spat. "And you are done." He lifted a compact tranquilizer pistol and fired. Ethan shoved Grace aside. The dart struck a wooden post inches from Max's head. Ethan and Riley collided, grappling violently. Riley was fast, controlled, trained. He kneed Ethan in the ribs, then slammed his elbow into the side of Ethan's skull. The SEAL staggered. Riley kicked his leg out, and Ethan fell, breath stolen by pain. Grace, refusing to freeze, grabbed a cast-iron skillet and swung with everything love and terror could muster. It hit Riley's shoulder. He spun, fury twisting his face. He lunged for her. Max roared. The old shepherd launched himself forward despite stitches pulling and fresh blood blooming beneath his bandage. His jaws clamped onto Riley's arm. Riley screamed as Max dragged him down. The dog's strength wasn't in muscle. It was in purpose. "Max!" Grace cried, torn between fear and awe. Riley smashed Max's ribs with his knee. Once, twice. Max yelped, but didn't release his hold. The puppies whined, terrified, furious, alive. Marcus charged, tackling Riley and driving him into the wooden floor hard enough to shake the walls. They wrestled, Riley grabbing Marcus's sleeve and flipping him with surprising power. He aimed the tranquilizer again, straight at Max. Sonny let out a fragile bark, small, squeaky, but defiant. Scout placed himself atop his sister, a tiny shield learning from his father. Max locked eyes with Riley, and despite tremors of pain, he moved, shielding his pups, taking the dart into his own shoulder. The tranquilizer hit, pumping chemicals into his veins. His legs faltered. But before collapse stole him, Ethan surged up and slammed Riley into a support beam. The tranquilizer pistol clattered across the floor. Marcus snapped handcuffs onto Riley's wrists and shoved him face first onto the ground. Ethan pinned his legs. Aiden kept his rifle trained directly on Riley's skull. Riley's chilling smile returned even in defeat. "Those dogs are prototypes. You have no idea what they're worth." Ethan punched that smile straight off his face. Grace cried into Max's fur, voice desperate. "Stay with us, please, stay." Max blinked, slow, heavy, his breath unsteady, but his gaze drifted to Sonny and Scout, alive, safe, and he rested his head gently on Grace's knee in exhausted victory. Outside, reinforcement sirens echoed through the mountains. In the cabin, wounded heroes breathed relief, if only for a moment. Because Max had fought to protect his family, and now they would fight to save him. Morning crept over Pine Ridge like a promise the night could not break. The storm clouds had finally thinned into soft ribbons of silver, and sunlight painted the snow-covered cabin roof in warm gold. Inside, the smell of burning firewood and weak coffee filled the air, ordinary scents that felt miraculous after the chaos they had survived. Max lay wrapped in thick blankets near the stove, his chest rising slowly, but with strength returning. The tranquilizer still made his movements sluggish, yet his sharp golden eyes remained alert, searching every face to ensure his family was safe. Sonny and Scout climbed onto his front legs, tiny tails wagging like flags of triumph. Max licked their noses gently, every gesture a quiet vow. "You're safe because I'm here." Grace knelt beside him, fingertips brushing the fur around his bandages. Her wedding ring, still shining despite scratches, glimmered when she adjusted a warm towel over the puppies. Ethan sat close, one hand resting on Max's head, the other on Grace's shoulder. Their bodies were bruised and exhausted, but their hearts beat steady, stronger in unity than ever before. Sheriff Marcus Hale stood near the door, radio crackling with urgent updates. Reinforcement units had arrived, and 2 officers escorted Riley Crane into custody outside. Riley looked different now, not menacing but small. His coat torn, his pale hair ruffled by defeat, and his wrists locked in steel. The scar down his cheek no longer made him look powerful. It made him look terrified of a world he could no longer manipulate. Marcus stepped closer to him, voice deep with earned authority. "Your operation ends here. No more chains. No more experiments." Riley spat in the snow, but the defiance in his eyes flickered into panic when he saw Max watching him from inside, standing, wounded but unbroken. Deputy Sam Collins approached with a transport vehicle. His thick beard was frosted white, his expression stern. "County's already talking to the feds," he told Marcus. "They want to know everything Crane's been hiding." Deputy Logan Reed followed behind, the calm and collected counterbalance to Sam's intensity. Logan's sandy blonde hair lifted in the cold wind as he read from his tablet. "There's a warrant out for his entire organization. Illegal biotech, animal cruelty, black market weapons contracts. The list doesn't end." Riley stumbled when Sam pushed him toward the truck, regaining some venom in his glare. "You have no idea what you've done. Those dogs." Ethan stepped outside, shoulders squared, face cut from justice. "They're heroes, and so is the one who just put you down." Riley's mouth twisted, but words failed him as the door shut behind him with a metallic slam, one that sounded like a chapter closing. Inside the cabin, Dr. Hannah Rogers arrived after checking their medical kits. Her long blonde hair was tied in a neater knot now, eyes no longer frantic with emergency fear. Instead, they shimmered with relief. "His vitals are stabilizing," she assured them. "With rest, food, and love, he's going to recover." Grace exhaled a trembling breath she had been holding since last night. She leaned her forehead to Max's, whispering, "Thank you for saving us." Max nudged her chin, as if saying, "No, thank you for finding me when the world abandoned me." Ranger Aiden Brooks stepped in from the cold, carrying containers of water and canned food. Snow clung to his jacket, and his rugged features softened with pride. "Cabin will hold as long as you need," he said quietly, "and I'll patrol the ridge until we escort you back." This land had seen enough violence. He wouldn't allow more. Hours later, paramedics arrived in a red-striped SUV, one of them being Laura Jennings, a petite woman with sharp hazel eyes and a calming voice. She had chestnut hair tied back and freckles across her nose. Despite her gentle demeanor, she moved with the efficiency of someone who refused to lose lives on her watch. She examined Max with focused care. "Strong will and a strong heart," she smiled. "That's what saves most fighters." Marcus, after coordinating the final sweep, approached Grace and Ethan. You have a choice, he said. We can get him placed in a K-9 rehab facility. Or, he paused, looking meaningfully at them, he can stay with you. Grace's answer was immediate, breathless with emotion. With us. He belongs with us. Ethan nodded firmly. He's earned his home. Max lifted his head at the word home. His ears perked. His tail moved, just once, small but powerful enough to move hearts. The couple shared a long look. Their wedding night had turned into a battlefield, their vows tested by fire long before any honeymoon could begin. But love, real love, was forged exactly in moments like these. Not in perfection, but in protection. As the rescue team packed supplies, the sheriff announced, "We're heading back to town. Roads are clearing." Ethan wrapped an arm around Grace's shoulders as they stepped outside. "Ready to finish getting married?" Grace laughed, tears bright but happy. "Start our life with 3 dogs? Absolutely." The journey back to Silver Creek felt different. Not like fleeing danger, but like marching toward a future they fought to deserve. Volunteers waited outside the clinic, residents of the town, faces lined with concern that melted into joy seeing the returning heroes. Among them was Mrs. Carolyn Birch, a warm-hearted bakery owner in her 60s with silver hair and flour-dusted gloves. She rushed forward, hugging Grace. "Oh, bless you too! You saved that brave angel!" Then she placed a small knitted blanket with paw prints over Sunny and Scout. "Every family needs comfort," she said, smiling through tears. In the clinic, Max was placed on a clean, soft bed. Grace stayed by his side, humming softly as the pups nuzzled into his fur. Ethan signed paperwork with Marcus, official forms making Max legally theirs, with Sunny and Scout included. Marcus shook Ethan's hand firmly. "Keep that dog close," he said. "He's shown us what a true guardian looks like." When evening fell, Silver Creek's tiny chapel opened again. The white lights were dimmer, but the joy shone brighter. Ethan wore his uniform jacket, bruises hidden under medals. Grace's wedding dress had been replaced by a simple ivory gown borrowed from Hannah. Yet Ethan couldn't take his eyes off her. She was radiant in survival. Max lay front row under a fleece blanket, Sunny and Scout sleeping against his chest. His head was held high, not as a soldier in command, but as a father proud of his pack. The chaplain, a gentle elderly man named Reverend Samuel Clark, with thinning hair and a kind, wrinkled smile, resumed the ceremony. "Marriage is not just shared joy," he said softly. "It is shared battles, shared bravery, shared love that protects." Ethan and Grace exchanged vows once more, not out of ritual, but out of gratitude. When they kissed, the room filled with applause, and a single bark from Max, a blessing in his own noble language. Afterward, Grace knelt beside Max, whispering through happy tears, "You saved our wedding. You saved us all." Ethan placed his hand over Max's heart. "Welcome home, partner." Outside, the snow had stopped. The first stars pierced through the fading clouds, tiny promises scattered across the sky. And in that quiet serenity, Max rested knowing he was not an experiment, not a weapon, not property. He was family, a guardian, loved. Sunny yawned. Scout tumbled over his father's paw, and Max closed his eyes, drifting into peaceful sleep, finally allowed to dream not of danger, but of tomorrow. A tomorrow he would wake into surrounded by warmth, hope, and the forever home he had fought for. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with trumpets and shining wings. Sometimes They come on 4 paws, limping through a snowstorm, still fighting for love. Max was never meant to survive, but God whispers hope into the broken. And when we open our doors, even on the hardest nights, He opens a path toward healing we never thought possible. Maybe that's what faith really is, believing that love will find its way back home. Tonight, this German shepherd reminds us, we are never too lost to be rescued, never too damaged to be loved, and never too small to be protected by the grace of something greater. If you believe in angels that walk the earth disguised as loyal companions, hit like to honor them. If you believe in second chances and the power of family, leave a comment with a prayer for Max and all the animals still waiting to be saved. And if you want to see more stories of hope, courage, and God-given loyalty, subscribe so you never miss a miracle. May God bless you, and may He bless every brave soul, human or animal, still searching for their way home.